Welcome to a short exploration of human society, its origins, and the divine forces shaping its evolution. This journey invites us to see beyond the physical, uncovering how God's guidance has influenced the foundations of civilization, from ancient rituals and institutions to modern ideals of justice and equality. Join us as we reflect on the metaphysical dimensions of societal development, inspiring deeper understanding. There's God and His guiding hand in human affairs. The main idea is that God's guidance can be seen in how nations and societies develop, built upon institutions that philosophers haven't fully understood because they only looked at the natural world. The central concept posits that metaphysics, represented by a figure with winged temples, transcends the physical world to contemplate God as a triangle with an eye and His providence. The work seeks to further elevate this contemplation to the realm of human minds within God, revealing divine providence within the civil world of nations, which is built on institutions represented by hieroglyphs. Philosophers, by focusing on the natural order, have only perceived a fraction of divine providence, while this endeavor aims to encompass the metaphysical world. Civilization began with religion, with God's will shared through prophets to chosen peoples, while other groups imagined gods with physical forms. Among human institutions, marriage forms the foundation of the family, and as a result of society as a whole. This was symbolized in ancient times by a torch lit from a sacred fire. Ancient Roman wedding customs used water and fire as symbols of sacred ceremonies. In contrast, people who rejected religion initially had no marriage customs, sometimes had relationships with close relatives, and lived alone without life's necessities. The ideal society balances mind and body, with God's plan being that those who use their minds should lead, while those who work with their bodies should follow. The study of nations shows they developed through three distinct stages. The first stage was ruled by religious authority through signs and messages believed to come from gods. The second stage featured rule by nobles who believed they were naturally superior. The third stage recognized that all people are equal, resulting in governments run by the people or by kings. Each stage had its own approach to law. The first used religious wisdom interpreted through stories. The second used strict word interpretations. And the third developed as societies matured into the final stage. Historical records often contain mistakes about events and people, while previously hidden developments are now becoming clear. Non-Jewish histories always begin with stories that serve as their first historical accounts. Looking at these stories reveals how sciences and nations began, arising from practical needs before being improved through careful thought. The figure of Hermes, representing Egypt's first wise men, was credited with inventions needed for social life, representing the practical wisdom that created families and communities. A universal way of thinking exists across all nations, understanding the basics of human social life but expressing it differently across cultures. Sayings and wise phrases show this, expressing similar meanings through different words. People, naturally focused on themselves and driven by self-interest, are guided by God to practice fairness, first within families, then as citizens, and finally as part of humanity. The first wisdom of the non-Jewish world began as understanding that was felt rather than logically thought out. The first people, lacking abstract reasoning, relied on strong senses and vivid imaginations. This exploration becomes a reasoned understanding of God's guidance in human affairs, beginning with the founders of nations and completed by thinkers who provide logical explanations. Logic comes from a root meaning, story, carried over into Italian as speech. In Greek, homythos, which is related to the Latin word for mute, suggesting that communication began as sign language before becoming spoken language. The saying, "Know yourself," was displayed throughout Athens because it was useful for society, while the 7 sages taught moral lessons through short sayings. The earliest societies were naturally ruled by the strongest. The public good was tied to family leadership, with citizenship limited to noble families. Later thinkers found ancient stories useful for teaching moral and spiritual lessons. Plato was inspired to understand divine punishments, being forgotten, having a bad reputation that only gods could inflict. Sciences like astronomy had practical origins, with gods assigned to planets and heroes to star groups. Poetry and abstract thinking naturally differ. Abstract thinking separates from the senses and seeks general principles, while poetry immerses in senses and specific details. This explains why ancient histories begin with fantastic stories and why philosophical ideas emerged from Athens' marketplace, growing from practical civic wisdom. God arranged human society to progress through family-based communities under fatherly authority. Governments by nobles based on religion, governments by the people guided by religious principles, and governments by kings protected by religion. If religion is lost, societies lose their unity, highlighting its essential role in social order. In conclusion, this exploration offers insights into human development, the foundations of society, and God's role in shaping our destiny. The understanding gained challenges us to think about the principles governing our lives and to work toward a more fair world, guided by awareness of the divine wisdom that has shaped human institutions throughout history.